My role is the head of digital literacy and blended learning at Caludon. I'm an assistant head teacher, and I'm also in charge of rolling out Firefly across our trust of 5 schools. My talk today is going to be focusing on feedback and looking at how we can manage feedback and improve it, but at the same time make sure that people have a good quality of life and teachers actually get sort of a work-life balance. So what I'm going to do is talk through the philosophy that we have at Caludon and across our trust, and then I'm actually going to model a workflow in the classroom. I teach A-level economics, so we're going to have a look at what we've been doing over the last few weeks and how we've been using audio feedback to improve the feedback of students. A couple of things. So just to kind of flesh out that context a little bit, I'm an assistant head teacher at the school. We are the lead school of a mat of 5 schools, and we've been using Firefly for a number of years, which we're kind of rebuilding at the moment. And I head up Firefly across the trust, and we're rolling it out. We also, and I'll show you later, are just in the very early stages, so bear with me on it, building a trust site which will link into all of our school sites as well. And I'm also the head of blended learning and digital learning at the school. So the basic context around that is, if I just show you, many of you probably will have heard of this book anyway, so I'll move out your way. It's a book by Sean Allison and Andy Tharby, and it's called The 6 Principles. Now, the 6 principles are these, okay, and we use those and as a framework and a language of teaching that we use in the school. I'm not saying that they are the only ones that you could have, they're the best ones in the world, but we've kind of fixed our colours to it and said this is in the classroom, these are going to be the things that we look at within faculties and within classrooms. And the idea is that for a number of years now, we have faculties have had a look at how we can develop those in increasing levels, and faculties and individuals will look at maybe 1 or 2 a year that they want to improve on. Okay, so they might look at explanation and say, right, across the faculty, how do we work together collaboratively to make explanation better? And we are very lucky, and I'm not saying this just because we're being filmed, but our head teacher, in my opinion, brought in one of the best things that we could have done with CPD a couple of years ago, where we did it faculty-centred. Which could sound just like one of those words that we've all heard about that actually doesn't mean a hell of a lot, but it actually for us works brilliantly that we set our priorities as a school across the year, and we tend to focus on a couple of these each year as a school, although faculties can deviate from that if they feel they want to. And then what happens is they organise their CPD, so the staff and the leadership team can put together an argument saying, I'd like to give some training on this, I feel I'm a specialist in this, or I've done well, or we get people from the outside. And let's say, for example, the history department can turn around across the year and they organise their CPD how they want. They then record what they're doing on the CPD, and then that gets fed back. There are some non-negotiables that we have each year, such as like child protection. But beyond that, from a teaching and learning perspective, they organise it themselves. And they focus on what's important. So, for example, I've this year already done 2 training sessions on blended learning because faculties have asked me to come in. And they're 2 faculties which are not that strong in terms of their digital literacy. Whereas I know I'm never going to get asked to go into science to do that, because we've got one of our digital experts who's a scientist who does the training for science, and she does it on a day-to-day basis. So you don't have to kind of sit through whatever random training someone's decided to put on for you. You choose what you want. And the thing that I wanted to focus on is this, okay, is the feedback element. It's one that I feel quite strongly about and have done for a number of years. And the main reason that I feel quite strongly about it is because of that. Let's be honest, I don't think I'm saying anything contentious here. And this stems from the fact that, and I probably shouldn't admit this, but it's quite open out there. I've been a teacher for about 16 years now, and about 10 years ago, I was a head of geography, and I'd just gone into post at a big school, and I had mainly Year 7 and 8 students groups because I was coming in new, and my colleagues were teaching their GCSE and A-level, and I realised in the May of a year that there was one group that I'd marked all of their assessments brilliantly. They were doing really well. They were doing fine. In fact, they were doing probably the top couple of those groups that I was teaching, about 7 or 8 of those different groups. And then I looked through and I had this terrifying moment because I looked through their books and I hadn't marked their books all year. And I still to this day don't know how I did that, because obviously as a head of department I was on to people, have you got your books marked, have you sorted it out, have you gone through? And I had my little structure of going through, and I got there and kind of had that dread of, it's going to be a long weekend now, right, going through. And then it kind of dawned on me that these kids were doing fine. And what was more frustrating about 10 minutes after was that I'd actually probably let the other kids in the other 5 or 6 groups down more than I had those kids, because I'd spent so many hours marking probably what was fatuous comments in their book that they never looked at or clearly weren't doing anything more with than kids were just getting the odd mark at the end of the day. And there was just a realization that I don't want to do that anymore. That can't be good. Now, that doesn't mean I don't feel that written feedback can't be amazing. It can be. I've seen it. It can be great. But I've seen a lot more really bad feedback than I've seen good feedback. And it also, I think, takes up a large amount of our time. So if it's going to take up a large amount of our time, how do we manage it so that actually the students are working as hard as we are? That's what I want. Because I think the only way of making teaching is better, and therefore learning, is if we can put things in place that mean that staff actually have barriers taken down, not so we make their lives difficult. I don't want to hear from a leadership team member, right, actually we've got to improve this. I want a leadership team member to turn around and go, how can we make your life easier to then make the learning better? That's got to be the way that we do it. And then this came out about 4 or 5 years ago. From EEF, so the Education Endowment Foundation. They took a couple of reports in that had been done, and there's basically very little evidence about written marking, about how it improves anything. Again, I think written marking can be brilliant. I've seen it, and I've seen staff at our school do it, but I've seen, again, a lot more which is pretty poor. And then this, which is something that, at our school we're very lucky, we have a wellbeing committee. And this preys on my mind whenever I'm putting anything out there to do with technology. Because we know, especially for staff coming into teaching, they want to do their best. They want to mark books brilliantly. They want to be effective teachers. And I know that there are teachers who spend 48 hours of their weekend basically going through marking to make sure they've presented something for Ofsted or their leadership team member or their faculty member. And unless that is really closely linked to how much progress a student's making, I just don't think we should be doing it. I just don't. So this is my question, really. So we'll just solve that today. We'll all be happy and everything's okay. That's fine. Okay. And we're not going to solve it, but I think we have to perhaps move towards that. And for me, this year, Firefly's helped me do it. It really has. That 10 years ago when I had that moment, pretty much the week afterwards, I was into kind of technology and I was kind of looking at something where, right, could I speak it so that it types? And this is 10 years ago, I wasn't finding very much. And everything that there was, I was doing audio feedback and then these files were massive and the kids couldn't access them. And it was like, this is actually causing me more work. And then you just went back to writing. So, and the context around this is how we've changed over the next year. Is about a year ago, I was charged with kind of having an IT strategy across the school. And we've moved from being physical drives so that everybody is now on OneDrive for their files. Everyone loves me for it. And we've moved over faculties to Teams, and I don't think it really matters what that looks like, whether it's Google Drive or OneDrive or what have you. And we've started teaching with iPads in the classroom simply because I want staff to have mobility and to go and have those conversations. It resonated when you said about you can go and have a chat with a student. Wouldn't that be nice? To go and have a talk with your students and talk about how they could improve. And so something I've started using a lot of is the audio feedback in when I set tasks. This is through the iPad app for Firefly, but it's if you have Firefly, there's the apps for your phone. So even if not everyone's got an iPad, you can have there's one for Android and one for iOS as well. So you can download it and do the same thing for this. And the way that I use it is, so for example, this is my A-level economics group, but I do it at lower school. This was this week. And I do this incidentally for bookmarking as well. So the kids mark it up. So what happens is that I set them a task. Look at that, really interesting. Firms want to reduce their long-run average. Don't worry about reading it. It's economics. Economics teachers are like, "What's that?" Everyone else is switching off at this point. And all that happens is that they do their work normally. So that's it. They do their work normally, and they get one or two choices. They can either give me in the paper copy, but what most of them choose to do is they use their phones and they take a picture of it. So this is Olivia's. She handed it in. Yasmin actually just sent me a little picture of what she'd done, her work. And then what I do is I mark it the same way, but I have her essay in front of me and I sit there with the essay and I talk through what my thoughts are on what she could do to improve and how that would work, okay? The only actual marks I make on the page are numbers. So it'd be like, to make their life easier, I just go at point 1, have a look at adding this in, or I talk through it. So that means that then Yasmin's got 5 minutes, and I'm going to do this for about 5 seconds before I cringe too much. But she literally has then, let's see if it does work from here.
Okay, Yasmin. One of my firms, right, first thing I'd say is might be worth on this one because you're trying to really specifically say that.
Yeah, that's enough. We've all had enough of that one. So she gets 5 minutes of feedback. So what does that then look like is she gets the piece of work back. Now, we're not in a school where I'm in an inner city school in Coventry. I'm not walking in with students going, I've got a brand new shiny iPad in every classroom. Everything. That'd be great and that'd be lovely. We just don't have it. Most of our students use phones, okay? And that's how they access their work. We did a couple of years ago put a BYOD network in so the students can use our Wi-Fi. Some of them you do, some of them don't, but it's there for them to use it if they want. And what will happen is they will simply get out their phones. I ask them to make sure they bring their headphones for that, because let's be honest, they've all got headphones for it. When they're listening to it, we pretty much know they won't buy a textbook, but they'll buy headphones. So at that point, all they do is they put the headphones in and they sit, they listen to it, and they mark their work, and then they redo their work. And they mark it up and they have a look at the corrections that they go through. And then if I've got a student that I know that is struggling, or I know that's weaker, or I know that actually really wants to be pushed or is underperforming, I can go and sit with that student and then help them individually while the others are actually marking up their work. So for me, what that does is this: it gives all of these students 5 to 6 minutes worth of audio feedback. And if you talk for 5 minutes, you're looking at about 3 pages of written work. Well, I can't write 3 pages of written work for all of these students. So for me, in the past, a set of essays of 19 students would take me 3-4 hours. We've all been there. If you taught A-level, it's like you get to the 15th one and kind of go, oh my God. And actually your marking goes down. We all know that it doesn't, because you just don't want to do it anymore. And you're saying similar things. Now, that took me, they're all essays, and that took me 1 hour to do it. And they're 25 mark essays, and each of them have got like 5 minute sort of bits of feedback. And the reason for that is there's no upload. I literally press record. I preempt it with my students beforehand. They're not getting a scripted. You heard me. There's there's mms, there's okay. Oh, there's a couple of times where I've said in this, oh no, scrap that. Don't worry, sorry. Actually, I've just seen it now. And they know they're going to get that, but they get that when I'm teaching. So, you know, we're human beings. We're not like, you know, Hollywood stars. That's what it is. You know, they know they're going to get that conversation from me. And to be honest with you, they don't care. You know, what they want is, oh, great. So I started doing that with those students. And what that means is that I said, what do you want? Do you prefer the written feedback? If you want, this is your education, what you're doing. And like, literally there was a bit of silence. And it was one of those ones where I was like, okay, right, it's good. And like a couple of, like literally the kids were like, are you kidding? like no. I had one girl just went, can you please never write on my work ever again? I'm like, I don't know how to take that. And literally 3 kids at the end when I started it this year, because I'd used it with other groups, came to me at the end of it and just went, please never mark written work. I want that can I have that all the time? And what you can also do is, what I really like, is how many of you, and you will know this, have read 8 bits of work and you're writing the same thing 8 times? And you all know, you go, I probably didn't teach it well enough, or I probably didn't say that well enough, and I'm going to write it another 23 times. Well, for me, you can just click on the all students and then just do an audio thing. And after 2 or 3 times when it's happened, all I do is I go, right guys, if this is applicable to you, on this one I did one where it was, they weren't doing per unit cost. Don't worry, dull. Okay, and so I just went, guys, you need to make sure you write per unit cost after every time that, you know, that you're talking about cost. And that means that that's just been sent to all of them. And that's been 19 times that's been done, and that's 10, 15 seconds worth. That's what I like. You know, I think we can all kind of, you know, do that. So for me, that's a complete game changer of feedback and the way it works. Now, that's kind of linked with what we also do is I link up, and I know this isn't Firefly, but it links with Firefly. So all of their work, we use OneNote for some of their work that I built. We could build this on Firefly, but I kind of like the written aspect, because I also then, when we're talking about collaboration, they ask me questions. This is just from this week, so there's 4 or 5 questions they asked me. The reason I bring this up at Firefly is because I also set my homework through this, because they've all got it, but OneNote then now links with Firefly. So if I've got a page I want them to look at, I've just linked the classes together and then set it. So that's quite a nice way that they just go, they have a look at a page, they upload it, they put it on there, and then they do it. But you can see I just do the audio on this as well for questions, because again, that's 5 minutes. I'm not going to sit there typing for 5 minutes. I want to draw a little diagram that's on there, and I mean, you can see my writing. That's why they don't like it. Okay, so that's our kind of workflow that we work. And then what happens is, on top of that, is then I take pictures as I go around the room. I've done this with the laptop, this was with the iPad, but whatever. And we just highlight bits that they've improved. So this is their improved bit. So I got them in the same lesson, had their feedback, and then there might be one great paragraph. Well, don't rewrite that paragraph, just rewrite the second paragraph. This person was just their graph. Basically in economics, you have to talk about the graph. Otherwise you don't get application marks, and they hadn't. So their focus was, how do I link my analysis to the graph to get the application marks? And I just highlight it in front, and we put that up as a group, and we have a look at what other people are writing once we've done it, and then I will give him audio feedback again on that, and I'm totally happy with that. And the reality is, I don't actually mind sitting doing 3 hours work of feedback if I know I'm giving them that and they're spending the same amount of time. I resent sitting doing 3 hours worth of feedback and I look at a book and there's 4 lines on each person's work that isn't going to be useful. Okay, I'd rather not spend the 3 hours anyway, but you know, realistically, I need to know that it's going to improve their practice and where it goes. And then the very, very last thing from me is, before we kind of, if there's any queries or questions, I don't know, oh, that's not going to be there. There we go. So we're doing something slightly different. We have, that was never going to work, was it? We have a trust site now, whereby what happens is that we have, it's a governor portal, and it is also a trust policies portal. So you can see there, you'll have to bear with me. I'm not going to go into any of them. I literally started building it a couple of weeks ago. And what will happen is this, is that across our trust, the governors will log in here, but will only see their sections that they go into and their notes. And that will, and I'm trying to smile sweetly at the guys, the developer guys at Firefly, long term, you won't thank me for it, is that we're going to aim to look at setting them tasks. That would be great long term. I know it's not there at the moment, so that they get set tasks so that we can then set the governors things to do. So it makes their life easier. But this one's the one that's my job for the next few months, because what will happen is there will be trust policies on the site, and I oversee trips for the trust. So there will be a trust policy site. I will update that, but then that page will be linked to a trust page for policies on each of our 5 schools' websites. And then what will happen is I will just update it on here, and all the 5 schools get it updated instantly, and they can just have quick looks at what's going on, because obviously you can just put an individual file in Firefly so you can see it quickly, and then they will just amend theirs accordingly. But then it means that actually we can disseminate all of the information really, really easily. We don't have to worry about profiles or anything like that, and they just get a login for this for the pages. So that'd be the way it works. I don't know if that's too short or too long, but there we go, that's where we're at. Thank you.